Hey, what's up, everybody? Ralph here. So today's topic, I want to share with you this article I came across on CNBC.com. It's talking about implementing personal finance education within schools. And, you know, me being the person that's really into personal finance, it caught my eye. So I just want to share with you like some of my thoughts on, you know, as I read through this article, and just share with you some of my thoughts about what they're trying to do. All right, so to read, it was like, and I got my tablet here. So it says there's a growing push for students to get personal finance education in high school. But according to U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona, that might not be early enough. I agree. Like, I mean, why do you have to wait till high school to implement like personal finance education? Why not sixth grade, or when kids are starting to really understand when it comes to like dealing with numbers? And like, we got so much technology today that we could like, we teaching like, I see some of my friends and they just hand off their tablets and, you know, phones to the kids, and they're just learning how to do math, multiplication, all different types of stuff to help them, you know, understand math or whatever type of education they're trying to get. So why can't you use these same tools and technology to help people learn about personal finance? I'm not sure when is the earliest time, but I think once you start really understanding, grasping like numbers, or, you know, and getting a real grasp of understanding how things work in terms of numbers, you should start, you know, finding ways on how to implement some personal finance. I mean, obviously, you know, you don't want to get, you know, too much into numbers, like starting by budgeting and all this stuff like that, but you know, teaching kids, you know, how to spend less than you make. You know, that's like simple math, right? If you have like X amount of dollars, then you can only spend a certain amount of money, right? And I think there's ways that we can create a curriculum in helping kids understand how to deal with money. We have so many smart people in this country that we can figure things out. So, I mean, why wait till high school? You know, 8th grade, you know, 7th grade, and then once they get into high school, they're ready, and once they have to make certain decisions, and they'll be ready once they get into high school and understand that, you know, personal finance is very important in daily life. All right. So as I continue, it says, when I talk to students now, they talk about the need for financial literacy, learning in practical sense, how to look at debt and how to plan for a financial secure future, Cardona told CNBC. While states and local boards and not the Federal Education Department control curriculums, the group is trying to promote financial literacy instruction at an early level. Yeah, like I said, they should be trying to implement it as early as possible. Once kids start really understanding how to deal with numbers, then they should try to figure out a systematic way to help, you know, teach kids. So, right, so it says we can't wait for personal finance courses in high school, he said. We need to infuse it more naturally so that by the time they get to high school, there's a better understanding of it. Currently, a personal finance education course is a high school requirement in 21 states, according to the data from Next Gen Personal Finance. In 24 states, high schools must offer personal finance education, but it's not a requirement for students to take it. It'd be interesting to find out what those states are. I didn't know that. Like they said, 24 states. There's a requirement in 21 states, but 24 states have the personal finance education, but it's not a requirement. Now, I mean, we can make the argument if it should be a requirement, but I mean, why not? It doesn't hurt, right? It doesn't hurt to help people, you know, help kids learn about personal finance, right? I think that's more important than a lot of stuff that they're teaching now, right? Like everybody can benefit from understanding how to be, how to deal with personal finance and dealing with budgeting, how to deal with debt, managing debt, and just managing money overall, right? So once you get to high school and you want to go to college, then you have a better understanding of the loans that you're going to be taking. Right, because obviously you can look at today's environment where, you know, a lot of students going to college and they have all this debt, and by the time they graduate, you know, they got to pay that stuff back. They're like, oh, I don't know they don't know how to approach it, right? So I think before, you know, once you get into high school and you're reaching that point where you're going to be taking on this massive debt, or to go to college, or you're trying to figure out a way how to pay for college, I think it helps to have a better understanding of what you're getting into. So you're looking at the numbers and you're like, all right, boom, I got, you know, I'm getting this amount of money from scholarships, and this is how much the loan I'm going to be taking, and this is how much I'm going to have to pay back. So I think that would help before people are getting into the point of going into college. They have a better understanding of the money that they're going to be taking on in terms of debt. Right, so we don't have this huge crisis where people are like, oh, I don't want how to. They have this huge crisis where they don't know how to pay for it after they're done. You know, they get this job and they're like, all right, I don't make enough to pay for it. So I think it helps. I think it would help to have for people to have a better understanding of what they're getting into. All right, so they go on to say, I can't think of a better time than now where we are close to the reset button in education as we've ever been, Cardona said, adding that there is also an opportunity to address gaps in achievement often seen among students of color, many of whom come from families hit hardest by the pandemic. Obviously, you have a point where they talk about people of color struggling the most, especially when they go into college. They don't have the necessary funds to pay for loans. So I think it would help, if not just people of color, but any student, that they get a grasp of personal finance, because it affects everyone, right? Obviously, people that struggle economically, people of color, they struggle the most. It would help them as well. So I think it would, it definitely would benefit. All right. So going forward, it said, of course, because the education department doesn't set curriculums across the country, it influences on how individual schools approach personal finance education is somewhat limited. Still, Cardona is doing what he can to encourage states and districts to include better financial literacy courses and programs for students. What we're doing is elevating best practices, Cardona said, and what we're doing is looking for state level policies that do promote financial literacy at an early age and lifting those up. In addition, Cardona pointed out about multiple provisions in both the American Rescue Plan and President Joe Biden's Build Back Better initiative that will give even more support to schools and teachers across the country. Ultimately, multiple levels of government will have to work together to make sure that all students have personal finance education in their high schools, middle schools, and even elementary schools. I think the time is now for us to have this approach that is local, state, federal, and working in unison. Like I said, I think it's important for people to understand personal finance. We got to find a way to do it. For me, the way I learned how to manage money, even though I made a lot of mistakes of acquiring debt, like I said, I mentioned in other videos, the board game playing, was it Cash Flow? That really helped me get a real good picture and real understanding of how to manage money. You're dealing with incomes and expenses, assets and liabilities. Understand that you need to spend less than you make. That board game alone helped, flip the switch on really how to manage money, cutting expenses, all right? Once I did that, I had a much better grasp of how I manage money. And they also have a kids version of that, right? So we have the adult version where I think it's 13 and up. Then also, that board game, they have a kids version from like 7 to 12 or something like, or age 7 to age 12. So there are ways on how to teach children. So maybe they can use that as a model on how to put implement that type of education in the schools. Because obviously you want to make it fun, because kids get bored, and when you start talking numbers and budgeting, that could be a way to bore them. But I think there's a way that we can make it fun for the kids, and help them learn on understanding how money works and how debt works. So I think it would be I think it's a good thing that they're trying to do this. Hopefully they can find a way to do this in a way that that make it interesting and not too political, and to make sure that we're actually teaching kids something, because this is obviously one of the most important things for any person that's going through college and getting out of college and getting into the real world, where they're gonna have to get a job and then actually deal with money on their own. All right, so I think it's an important thing. Hopefully they get this thing done and they do it right. All right, so this is something definitely that to keep an eye on. So let me share. I want to hear your thoughts. So if you guys, if you have any thoughts, make sure you leave a comment down below. Hit the like button, share, and make sure you subscribe. Right. I hope this was helpful. Take care and have a good one. All right. Later.